This is where our story begins, not with a bang, but with a whisper. A story not about doing, but about becoming. A story of how a person grows in silence. We are taught growth is loud. It is the graduation cheer, the promotion announcement, the public triumph. We document it, share it, and measure it against the noise of others. But what about the growth that happens in the quiet? The growth that has no audience, collects no likes, and speaks in a language before words? Like the seed that splits its shell in the dark, damp solitude of the earth, the most profound human transformations often follow a silent script. Silence has become a ghost in our own lives, a relic, a commodity that is vanishing from the modern world. We wake to alarms, commute through soundscapes of engines and construction, work in open offices humming with activity, and unwind by filling our homes with digital chatter. We have become so proficient at layering noise upon noise that we've built an immunity to our own inner frequencies. We are afraid of the quiet, because in the quiet we might have to meet ourselves. Not the curated digital avatar, but the raw, unedited human being. This is Leo. His workday ended 5 hours ago. Yet, here he sits. For him, this car is not a vehicle, but a modern-day anechoic chamber. It is the only space between the demands of the office and the needs of his family where he is not required to perform. This silent, stationary vehicle is where he unwinds the knots of the day. He is not meditating in the traditional sense. He is simply being. In this daily ritual of quiet, something is repairing. No one sees it. His growth here is not in learning a new skill, but in the quiet recalibration of his spirit. He is practicing what one might call reactive self-improvement, the subtle art of dialing down his internal noise before he walks through the front door. In 1952, composer John Cage presented a piece called 4:33, where the performer makes no intentional sound for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. It was scandalous. Many called it a joke, but Cage was a prophet of silence. He said, "There is no such thing as silence." The piece wasn't about the absence of music, but about redirecting our attention to the ambient symphony that constantly surrounds us. It was an invitation to listen deeply to the world and by extension to ourselves. True growth in silence begins with this kind of radical attention. It asks a simple, terrifying question. If you strip away all you do and all you say, who is left to listen? For Maya, silence is not passive. It is the essential medium of her craft. The wheel's noise is a constant, a sonic blanket that drowns out her mental chatter. In this state, her hands don't just follow instructions from her brain. They seem to think in clay. She calls it a conversation with the material. Her growth as an artist doesn't happen when she's planning or talking about her work. It happens in these long, silent hours at the wheel, where mistakes become new shapes and intuition guides form. She has learned to be kind to the artist she is today, in this moment, trusting that this flawed, present self is the only one who can create the work of tomorrow. This is the silent work of expertise and love. It is the exploit-explore principle applied to life itself. The birdwatcher exploits his knowledge of calls 80% of the time, but stays silent and alert to explore the possibility of a rare sighting the other 20%. The parent exploits their routine of care, but in a silent moment of watching, explores the depth of their connection. Growth is in the balance between the reliable pattern and the open, silent space where something new can appear. Our loudest critic often lives inside our own head. It speaks in a voice of should. I should be more productive. I should be further along. I should be like them. These internal commands get louder through repetition until they feel like truth. They become the noisy architecture of our anxiety. Growing in silence requires the courage to walk into this inner labyrinth and question the megaphone. David is learning to reconsider his loudest should. The command, "You should write every morning," had turned his passion into a prison. In the quiet space of not writing, he asks, if this should weren't true, how would I succeed another way? The answer comes not as a thought, but as a feeling, a relief. Perhaps his best writing comes from a place of fullness, not force. Perhaps a silent walk, or reading, or even idle daydreaming is not procrastination, but composting. It is the silent underground process that breaks down experiences into rich soil from which ideas can sprout. His growth is not in word count today, but in restructuring the silent foundation of his creativity. This is perhaps the most practical form of silent growth, improving how you handle life's curveballs. The growth isn't in preventing the storm, but in silently building a sturdier internal shelter. It's the microsecond between stimulus and response that Viktor Frankl wrote about, where our freedom lies. In that silent gap, we can choose. Do we let the noise of panic dictate our reaction? Or do we access a quieter, wiser response? Each time we practice this, taking a breath before replying to a provocation, walking away from an escalating argument to find quiet, we are doing silent, invisible reps for our emotional resilience. No one may give us a medal for it, but this is the growth that defines a life. So how do we cultivate this silent garden? The beautiful truth is that it requires not addition, but subtraction. It is about carving out pockets of non-doing in a world obsessed with doing. Their growth was not announced, it was accumulated. In the silent space between thoughts, in the deep breath before a reaction, in the courageous questioning of an inner critic, in the patient attention to a craft or a loved one's face. This is the silent work of becoming human. It is the mycelial network of the soul, spreading unseen beneath the surface, connecting all parts of us, making us more resilient, more creative, more whole. The world may never see this garden, it may never post about its blooms. But you will live from its roots. You will taste its fruit in moments of unexpected peace, in surges of unforced creativity and the strength to meet chaos with a calm heart. The silent growth is the truest growth, for it needs no audience but your own future self, waiting to thank you for the quiet work you did today. In our first journey, we explored the silent garden within that personal, fertile space where the seed of the self splits and grows unseen. But a seed does not grow in a void. Its roots seek connection. They tap into hidden networks, draw nourishment from shared soil, and provide stability for the entire organism. Today we go deeper, beyond personal stillness, into the profound truth that our deepest silence is not empty. It is resonant. It is where we listen to the world, and in doing so, discover how we are woven into the fabric of everything. This is the story of how silence, far from being an isolation chamber, becomes the very ground of connection, empathy, and a wisdom that speaks without words. For Elena, science is not just about observation. It is about deep, silent listening. She is conducting a soundscape analysis. By recording and sitting in the total acoustic environment, she can diagnose the health of the entire ecosystem. The absence of a certain frog's chorus, the shift in insect frequencies, these are silent cries, stories told in decibels and hertz. Her growth as a scientist is not in the data she extracts, but in her cultivated ability to listen to what is not being said directly. She must quiet her own human impulse to label and categorize, and instead, let the forest's own symphony inform her. In this receptive silence, she doesn't just study the forest. She begins to understand it. This is diagnostic silence. In a world of 15-minute appointments, the most powerful tool a healer can wield is often quiet attention. Dr. Aris knows the medical history is in the file, but the story is in the patient's telling. His growth as a physician is measured not just in medical knowledge, but in his willingness to hold a silent, compassionate space. He is listening for the hidden connections. The stomach pain linked to life stress. The fatigue intertwined with grief. By being silent, he allows the full, messy truth of the human before him to emerge. His silence says, I am here. All of you is welcome here. This is how silence becomes a bridge. This may be the most advanced silent practice of all. Relational silence. It is the anti-panic. When faced with a loved one's pain, our loudest instinct is to fix, to advise, to fill the uncomfortable void with noise. But true connection often asks us to stand silently at the edge of their experience with them. This silence is not passive. It is an active offering of sanctuary. It communicates, I cannot walk this path for you, but I will not let you walk it alone. In this shared quiet, trust grows deeper roots than any words of advice could ever plant. We are practicing self-nudging consciously, choosing a quiet, supportive response over a loud, fix-it one, and thus nudging the relationship toward deeper ground. We live in the age of noise, a relentless fire hose of information, opinion, and stimulus. Our growth now depends less on acquiring more data and more on developing the discernment to find the signal within the noise. This discernment is born in silence. It is the mental space where we can let the sediment of daily chaos settle, revealing the clear water of insight below. Ancient traditions called this contemplation. We might call it strategic ignorance, the wise, conscious choice to turn away from the distracting noise in order to attend to the essential signal. The chess master is not just thinking faster. They are thinking deeper. The silence between moves is where the game is truly played. It is where intuition, the subconscious synthesis of thousands of past patterns, converses with logic. This is the wisdom of silence. It allows for non-linear processing. It's not A to B to C, it is a spacious field where A, D, and Z can suddenly connect in a flash of, ah. Our most creative solutions, our wisest decisions, are not forced in frantic thinking. They are received in quiet contemplation. Grand May embodies the wisdom of a creative silence. Her understanding wasn't downloaded. It was accumulated, layer by layer, like a pearl in the quiet depths of experience. She has learned the patterns of human nature, the rhythms of the seasons, the value of a pause. Her growth into wisdom is the ultimate result of a life that has made room for reflection. She doesn't react to every ripple on the surface because she understands the currents underneath. She teaches us that the wisest voice is often the one most comfortable with stillness. Our digital mirrors are funhouse mirrors, distorting, amplifying, and comparing. The constant noise of curated perfection creates a desperate internal noise of not enough. To grow in this environment, we must build internal anchors. These are silent, non-negotiable practices that ground us in our own reality, not the reflected reality of the screen. It is the daily act of asking, in the quiet, what is true for me here, in this body, in this room, in this life? This is silence as rebellion, a conscious uncoupling from the noise machine. In this created quiet, something profound happens. External validation fades, and internal resonance strengthens. People begin to hear their own thoughts again. They rediscover the pleasure of a conversation that meanders without a timeline, of an appreciation felt but not posted. They are not just avoiding distraction. They are recalibrating their attention. They are practicing how to direct their most precious resource, their awareness, back toward the tangible, the authentic, and the present. Kai understands the physics of silence. In music, silence is not a whole, it is a shape. It is the resting note that makes the melody meaningful. It is the space that allows the sound to resonate. Our lives are no different. The silent pauses, the gaps between activities, the deep breaths between sentences, the rest days between striving, are not wasted time. They are the resonant chambers that give depth, meaning, and power to our actions. Without them, our lives become noise, a relentless, exhausting frequency with no shape and no soul. What is history but the attempt to listen to the silence between the recorded events? The grand narratives are the noise. The truth often lives in the quiet, personal artifacts. The diary entry, the private letter, the unfinished sketch. When we grow in silence, we contribute to this deeper history. We leave behind not just a record of what we did, but through our reflective choices and calm actions, we leave an imprint of who we were. We leave a legacy of temperament. Were we a source of reactive noise in the world or a center of calm presence? This is the invisible heirloom we cultivate in our silent garden. Their growth, tended in silence, now bears fruit and resonance. It echoes outwards, affecting families, communities, and systems in subtle, powerful ways. They are not shouting solutions from rooftops. They are embodying a different way of being, a way that listens, considers, and responds from a place of grounded wisdom. They are the living proof that the silent garden is not an escape from the world. It is the very root system from which a healthier world can grow. So we find that the journey inward, to the deepest personal silence, is also the journey outward to the widest connection. The same quiet that allows us to hear our own heart, attunes us to the heartbeat of another, and ultimately to the rhythm of the world itself. To grow in silence is not to disappear. It is to become so truly, solidly yourself that you become a clear vessel able to listen to the whispers of the universe, and in your own quiet way, whisper back. Your silent growth is your contribution to a louder, noisier world than ever before. It is a revolutionary act of patience. It is the root that holds the tree steady in the storm. It is the pause that makes the music human. Tend your garden well. The world needs its quiet, resilient fruit.